The grand hall of the Zerellan Empire sparkled with silver lights and flowing energy banners. Alien nobles, soldiers, and diplomats from across the stars stood in silence as Queen Zyrina entered. Her tall figure, covered in silver armor and a flowing green robe, walked with pride. Her eyes were sharp like blades, and her voice carried the weight of worlds. It was the first time humans were invited to a royal gathering. The queen had agreed to an alliance after recent battles with a common enemy, but she did not respect humans. To her, they were weak creatures, clever perhaps, but unworthy of high honor, especially unworthy of mating with a royal bloodline. "Let it be known," she said loudly as she looked across the hall, "that I would sooner join with a rock than a human male." Laughter echoed through the alien crowd. The humans stood quietly. Some looked angry, some looked embarrassed, but one of them, a man named Jace, did not move at all. He stood calmly near the back, his face still and unreadable. Queen Zyrina noticed him. He didn't look like a soldier. He wore a dark suit with light armor and held a small data pad. His brown hair was short, and his eyes, calm, not afraid. She turned away, thinking nothing more of him. Just another quiet human. Later that night, Queen Zyrina wandered into the royal garden alone. She often walked there to think. The trees glowed faintly, and small silver insects floated in the air. As she turned a corner, she saw someone sitting near the central fountain. It was him, the human named Jace. He stood up slowly when he saw her. "Your Majesty," he said with a soft voice. "You're brave to be here," she said. "Some would call it rude." "I thought the gardens were open to all guests," he replied. She tilted her head. "Are you not upset?" "About what?" I said. He gave a small smile. "Why would I be? You don't know me. So your opinion means little." Her eyes narrowed, but she felt something strange, something she didn't expect. He wasn't angry. He wasn't afraid. He was honest. "Most humans talk too much," she said coldly. "But you are quiet." "Talking too much can cause war," he answered. "Listening helps avoid it." The queen looked at him for a long moment. The garden was quiet except for the soft sound of water. "You speak like a warrior," she said. "But you look like a scholar." "I'm both," he replied. Queen Zyrina turned and walked away. But for the first time in many years, her heart felt unsteady. She had mocked humans before. But now one human's calm words had stayed with her. She didn't understand why, and that made her angry. As she returned to the palace, her mind kept returning to his face. Not because he was handsome, not because he had challenged her, but because he didn't try to impress her at all. That night, Queen Zyrina sat alone in her chamber looking out over the stars. For the first time, she whispered to herself, "Strange human." And for the first time in her life, she wondered what it would be like to speak with him again. The next morning, the palace was filled with noise. Meetings, military reports, and diplomatic talks. Queen Zyrina was busy, but her mind wasn't fully focused. She kept remembering her short conversation with Jace in the garden. It was nothing special, she told herself, just words. Yet something about his presence had stayed in her thoughts like a quiet echo. That evening, she gave herself permission to walk again in the garden, pretending it was only for fresh air. But deep inside, she hoped to see him there again. He wasn't. She stood alone by the fountain and stared at the water, watching the reflection of the stars above. Her empire was strong. Her people respected her. But lately, the peace talks with humans had shown her something new, another way to lead. Less control, more cooperation. It felt strange. She wasn't used to change. Behind her, she heard footsteps. "I didn't expect to see you again," said a quiet voice. It was him, Jace. He walked slowly, not wanting to surprise her. "I thought you returned to Earth," she said without turning around. "I leave tomorrow," he answered. I just wanted to see the garden one more time. Queen Zyrina glanced at him. Strange how you humans enjoy quiet places. I thought you liked noise and excitement. I like silence, he said. It tells the truth. She raised an eyebrow. How does silence speak? He looked up at the stars. It lets us hear our own thoughts. Zyrina studied him closely. He didn't try to charm her. He didn't praise her or beg for attention. He simply talked like they were equals. That idea was foreign to her, but not unpleasant. Your people are new to the stars, she said. Do you really believe you can keep up with ancient empires? No, he said simply. But we learn fast. His honesty surprised her. Most aliens would try to sound powerful. But this human didn't hide his limits. Instead, he trusted his growth. That confidence was different. Quiet, but firm. I insulted your kind yesterday, she admitted. Yes, he nodded. But not me personally. You didn't argue, she said. I didn't need to, he replied. Time shows more than words ever can. The queen was quiet for a moment. She didn't like how calm he made her feel. It was dangerous. Her heart wasn't used to softness. She was trained for war, for leadership, for control. Yet this human, with his stillness and steady eyes, made her curious. Why did you join the diplomatic mission? She asked. My brother died fighting your enemies, he said. I joined to help stop more deaths. She looked at him with surprise. His voice didn't shake. He didn't speak with hate, only purpose. I thought humans were driven by pride, she said. Some are, he said, but the good ones are driven by hope. Queen Zyrina stared at him, unsure of what to say. She was the ruler of a proud empire, yet here she was, standing quietly with a human who spoke not with power but with peace, and somehow that made him stronger than most warriors. I will see you again, she said suddenly. Jace looked at her with a small smile. Then I'll look forward to it. As he walked away, she stayed still, watching his figure disappear into the shadows of the palace. This time, her heart beat faster than before, and she didn't try to stop it. A few weeks passed after the royal gathering. Queen Zyrina continued her duties, but her mind often returned to the quiet human, Jace. She hadn't seen him again since that night in the garden, yet something had shifted in her heart. His words, his calm nature stayed with her like a quiet storm she didn't understand. Then came urgent news. A neutral world near the Zyrellan border had sent a distress signal. Pirates, possibly from the enemy's outer factions, were attacking small colonies. Queen Zyrina ordered a joint Zyrellan human rescue mission. It was meant to be simple: secure the area, protect civilians, and return. She decided to lead it herself to show strength. To her surprise, Jace was on the mission team. I thought you were just a diplomat, she said, as the ship prepared to jump. I also trained in field operations, he replied. Words don't always solve problems. She said nothing, but inside she was both impressed and uneasy. Why did she keep noticing him? Why did her thoughts always circle back to this human? They arrived on the planet, green, rocky, with deep caves below the surface. At first, all was calm, but soon a hidden explosion shook the ground. Pirates had left traps. The queen and her small team, including Jace, fell into a deep cave as the ground collapsed beneath them. The fall wasn't far, but the rocks blocked their exit. The others were separated above. The queen and Jace were trapped. Together in the lower chamber, her communication device was damaged. Jace checked his but couldn't get a signal either. We'll survive, he said calmly, checking their gear. I am not afraid, the queen replied, brushing dirt from her armor. I didn't say you were. For the next few hours they worked, together to find a way out. The cave was cold and damp. Water dripped from the ceiling. Small creatures scurried through cracks. They shared rations and light sources, but time moved slowly. Queen Zyrina sat near a stone wall, watching him. He made a small fire using human tech and offered her warmth. You still surprise me, she said finally. Why? He asked. You're quiet, but not weak. Humble, but not low. He smiled. And you're not as cold as you pretend to be. She looked at him sharply, then slowly smiled, just a little. Careful, human. Few speak to me like that. I'm not trying to impress you, he said. I'm just being real. That answer touched her more than she expected. She had met many leaders, many warriors, but none like him. He didn't demand respect. He earned it quietly, step by step. Night passed. They rested near each other, taking turns watching for danger. In the stillness of the cave, something unspoken passed between them. It wasn't love, not yet. But it was connection, deep and strong. The next day, a rescue team broke through the upper cave and brought them out. The queen returned to her ship without a word, her heart heavy with thoughts she couldn't explain. Later, in the silence of her private chamber, she placed her hand on her chest and whispered, "Why does this human stay in my thoughts?" She didn't know yet that the answer would soon change her life forever. Queen Zarina had returned to her palace, but she was not the same. Since the cave mission, her mind refused to rest. She had faced dangers many times before. She had won battles, signed treaties, and crushed rebellions, but never had she felt this kind of confusion. The memory of Jay sitting beside her in the dark, his steady voice, his quiet courage, it stayed with her, stronger than any memory of war. She tried to ignore it. She threw herself into work, training sessions, council, meetings, and long hours in the war room. But even in the middle of strategy discussions, she found her thoughts drifting back to the cave and to the human who had made her feel safe. Then something strange happened. Her body began to change. She felt tired, even though she slept well. Her senses became sharper. She could hear distant sounds and smell things more clearly. Her heart beat faster at odd times. The royal healers were called, and after several tests, they gave her a report that left her in silence. She was carrying a child. Not just any child. A hybrid. Half Zarellan. Half human. The queen stared at the healer, unable to speak. "How is this possible?" she asked finally, her voice low. "During your time in the cave," the healer said gently, "your body may have formed an unconscious bond. Zarellan queens can bond with life forms under rare emotional conditions. It is ancient biology, almost forgotten." The queen was silent for a long time. She remembered how Jace had offered her warmth, how they had shared rations, and how they had rested close for hours. She hadn't realized her body had reacted that deeply. Zarellan bonding was rare, sacred, and usually chosen. But this one had happened naturally, without words, without planning. Now, a new life was growing inside her, and it was his. Her council would be furious. Her enemies would mock her. Her people might not accept it, but in her heart, she didn't feel fear. She felt something else. She asked for complete privacy. For days, she sat alone in her garden, thinking deeply. She looked at the stars, remembering Jace's quiet voice, his respect, his honesty. No man had ever touched her soul that way. She realized something that made her breath catch. She didn't regret it. Even with the shock and the danger, she didn't wish to change what had happened. The next step was harder. She needed to tell him, but how would a human react to such news? Would he feel fear? Joy? Shame? She didn't know. But she wanted him to hear it from her, not from others. She sent a private message through trusted channels, requesting a meeting with Jace, alone. Meanwhile, her hand often rested on her stomach, not yet showing, but warm and alive. The bond was real. And deep inside, Queen Zarina, who had once laughed at the idea of joining with a human, now felt something powerful, awakening inside her. It wasn't just a bond of biology. It was the beginning of something far greater. Queen Zarina stood before the tall glass window in her private chamber, staring out at the stars. Her hands gently rested on her lower stomach, where new life quietly grew. A child. Part of her. Part of him. The weight of the moment was heavy. She had always been a symbol of strength, unshaken, fearless, and above all loyal to Zerellan tradition. But now something had changed. Her heart was softer. Her mind was full of emotions she didn't fully understand. And soon the truth would no longer be hidden. Her royal healers had already noticed the changes in her body. It would not be long before the council demanded answers. That morning, they came. 12 council members entered the royal hall, dressed in ceremonial robes, their faces serious. These were the oldest and wisest of her people, trusted for generations to guide the empire. The queen entered with a calm face, but her heart was storming inside. "We sense something is wrong," one of them said. "Your energy has changed. You hide yourself from us." Zyrina remained silent. Another elder stepped forward. "There are whispers that your biology is reacting strangely, that you may be carrying." Gasps echoed in the room. Some council members looked shocked. Others looked angry. One of them stepped closer. "Tell us, Your Majesty. Is it true?" She raised her chin. Her voice was steady. "Yes." Silence fell. Not even a breath moved. A bold elder, voice shaking, asked, "Who is the other parent?" She looked them straight in the eye. "A human." The words struck like thunder. "A human?" one cried out. "You mock our bloodline." "Have you lost your mind?" shouted another. "This will destroy the purity of our race." Voices rose, anger filled the air, but the queen stood firm. "I did not plan this," she said, "but I will not lie. It happened during the mission, and I choose to protect this child. You will bring shame upon the empire," one shouted. "We cannot allow this." "You don't get to allow it," she replied sharply. "I am queen." They paused, stunned. "This child," she continued, "was not created by mistake. It was born from a bond that grew not from power or tradition, but from understanding, trust, and truth." "Even if it's human?" a voice said bitterly. "Especially because it is part human," she replied. "Have we not allied with Earth? Have we not seen their courage, their wisdom, their spirit? This child is proof that two worlds can become one." Some council members lowered their heads. Others remained silent. "You fear change," she said softly. "But change is already here, and I will not deny it." One elder looked at her and said carefully, "Then what of the father?" "I have called for him," she answered. "He will return soon." The council finally left, some in anger, some in silence. That night, Zyrina sat alone in the garden once again, just like the night she first met him. The wind was soft and the stars above blinked gently as if waiting. She closed her eyes, placing a hand on her stomach again. "I don't know what the future holds," she whispered, "but I will fight for it. For you. And for him." Somewhere, across the stars, the message had already reached Jace, and soon everything would change. A soft hum filled the air as a human ship slowly landed on the royal landing pad. Guards stood on high alert, and the Zerellan sky was painted with purple clouds. Queen Zyrina stood at the top of the palace steps, her face calm, but her heart beating fast. The message had reached Jace, and now he had come. He stepped out of the ship, dressed in a formal dark suit with light armor at the shoulders. His eyes searched the area, then locked on hers. He walked forward without fear, without hesitation. The queen met him halfway. "You called for me," Jace said quietly. "Yes," she replied. "We need to talk. In private." The royal guards moved aside as the two entered the palace alone. They walked through quiet hallways until they reached the garden. The same garden where they had spoken before, the place where their bond had begun. "I assume the message was clear?" she asked. Jace nodded. "You're carrying a child?" "Yes, yours." He didn't speak for a long moment. His face didn't show shock or fear. Instead, he looked into her eyes with deep focus. "I didn't know it was possible," he said, softly. Neither did I, she replied. But the bond formed when we were trapped. My biology reacted to you. This child is part of us now. Jace stepped closer. Are you all right? She nodded. Physically, yes. Emotionally, I've been through a storm. He gave a small smile. Me too. They sat on a low bench under the glowing tree. For a few minutes, they were quiet. Birds with crystal feathers sang softly in the distance. The council was angry, she said. I can imagine. They think this child is a threat to tradition, she continued. But I don't care. I've made my decision. I will protect this child. Jace looked at her gently. You don't have to do it alone. She turned her head. What do you mean? I may be human, he said, but I'm not walking away. This child is mine too. I will stand beside you. Her heart trembled. For someone raised in power, she was not used to hearing words like that. Soft but full of strength. You would face the galaxy's judgment. For me? She asked. For both of you, he replied. And not because I must, but because I choose to. Zyrina looked away, her breath catching. She never thought she would feel this way, but now sitting beside him, she felt something stronger than pride. She felt peace. Then stand with me tomorrow, she said, before the council. Let them see the human who won the Queen's heart. Jace stood and offered his hand. She hesitated for only a second before placing her hand in his. That night the palace was silent, but the stars above seemed to shine brighter. The next day, news spread quickly across the empire. The Queen would make a public appearance, with a human by her side. Some were shocked. Some were curious, others were angry, but none could ignore it. Queen Zyrina, once proud and untouchable, now walked through the palace garden hand in hand with a human, and on her face was something no one had seen before. A smile. The great hall of the Zyrellan palace was filled with the most important leaders and citizens of the empire. All eyes were on Queen Zyrina as she entered, her steps calm and sure. But this time, she was not alone. At her side stood Jace, the human who had once been mocked by her, and who now stood proudly beside her. Whispers filled the crowd. Some were surprised, some were angry, but all were watching. The Queen stopped at the center of the hall. Her hand rested lightly on her belly. Where the new life within quietly grew, she lifted her head and spoke with a strong voice that echoed through the chamber. My people, she said, I have brought you here today to share a truth. I carry a child, born of two worlds, two peoples. She turned to look at Jace. This man who stands with me is the father. He is human. The room fell into silence. Then from the back, some voices rose in shock and disbelief. But the Queen raised her hand and the room quieted again. Change is never easy, she said, but I have seen what humans can offer. Courage, kindness, and hope. This child is not just mine or his. It is the symbol of a future we must build together. Jace stepped forward and spoke clearly. I come from a world that has faced many battles, but I believe in peace. I believe in working together. I will stand by the Queen and by this child, for the good of both our peoples. Many looked at him with surprise. A human showing such respect and strength was new to them. The Queen's council watched carefully, some still doubtful, but many moved by her words. After a long moment, an elder stepped forward. Your Majesty, this is a bold choice. You risk much. Zyrina nodded. I do, but I choose hope over fear, unity over division. The child I carry is proof that we can be stronger together. Slowly, the room began to accept the new reality. Murmurs turned into nods. Skepticism softened. Outside the palace, the news spread quickly. Across the empire and beyond, many celebrated the courage of the Queen and the human who stood with her. Weeks later, Queen Zyrina walked through her private garden, now showing the gentle curve of pregnancy. Jace walked beside her, offering support and warmth. Their hands brushed and a quiet smile passed between them. The queen thought of the first night they met, the mockery she once felt toward humans. Now she felt gratitude. Gratitude for the child growing inside her. Gratitude for the bond they had formed. And gratitude for a new future. A future where two worlds once so different could become one. Together. And so, the story of Queen Irina and Jace, the human who changed her mind and her heart, became legend. Not because of war or power, but because of love and courage, a new era had begun.